Hey, Marmite here, and welcome to episode 10 of my Advanced Modeling tutorial series. Today is a short episode. I want to cover how to deal with exceptions you're not familiar with, and it's kind of hard because it's a little bit subjective to what is unexpected or not. I can only think of a thing that comes to my mind, and it happens a lot, even for more advanced modders, but also beginners. And that is the fact that side only, or the annotation at side only, you might not be familiar with that one, and that's why I'm going to show you what happens when you're not careful. So yeah, that's basically the only thing I want to show you today, and that's why it will be a short episode. So let's get started, and I'm going to get started by using the event we've talked about last episode, the player tick event. And the idea is that every tick, when the player walks around, it will grab every entity that's around the player and throw it up in the air. Just randomly. So let's code that real quick. So for every tick the player, every time the player gets ticked, we're going to get all entities in a certain area, and we've done that before in the camo mine. In here. So we can do that. And instead of the X, Y, and Z code over here, we are going to use the player X, Y, Z. And we also can do event.player.worldObject, event.player.position X, X, Y, Z, X, Y, and Z. And let's increase the range a bit. And as we're not dealing with block coordinates, we can just make this the same value, not +1. Okay. So now we're getting all entities within a certain area, and for every entity we're going to do something. First of all, we're going to make sure the entity we're checking on isn't the player itself. That kind of makes sense, doesn't it? And then we're going to do entity.setVelocity. That. And let's just test that, because I think that should be it, really. Just make sure we're checking for entity living base. So that means we're selecting all entity living bases, not just players it was set to. Are you drunk? There you go. So, will this work? Whoop, there we go. We're shooting off entities. So this works fine and all. It does happen on the server side only, and it gets synced to the client side, so that's all fine. Entities are dying, so that indicates to me it's working great. But this would be kind of a boring episode if this was it, wasn't it? So let's start up a server. And for a server to work for the first time, you need a couple of things. you need to make sure that when you start up the server the first time, it will yell in the console that it crashed. And if you look a few lines up, you'll read a EULA thing. And basically what it means is you need to open this document, read it, and also read the EULA. And then you need to set this value to true, from false to true. Also, when you're starting up Minecraft with a random player name, so player 512, that isn't a username that's validated with Minecraft. So when you're going to try to join a server, that will not work by default. So you also need to make sure that you enable online mode or disable online mode. So with that out of the way, you should be able to log into a server. There we go. And we were player 512. We're going to make a game mode player 512. Does this work? It does not. Aboo. Game mode player 512. I always get confused which game mode is which. Oh. You know what? That's the only command I do know in a server console. Okay. So that's all fine. But what happens if we approach an entity? Really? There are no entities around? There we go. Okay, let's see what happens. Oh, boom! Server crashed. So, yeah. What happened there? Will it even show me? That's the question. Huh. Let's see if I can get it to show me what happened. Ah, there we go. I just need to scroll down. There we go. No such method error, set velocity. So I derped somewhere over there. So, and what did I derp? Well, when we look at this method, you'll see it's marked with site only, and usually you'll see site only site.client. There's also a site only site.server, but to be honest, I never really saw that that version of it. I only saw site only site.client. And what this means is that this method only exists on the client or an internal server we tested on before, but not on a dedicated server. So on a dedicated server, this method doesn't exist. It basically was deleted. So that gives problems because when we invoke it on a dedicated server, it will crash. So usually when you see no such method error, make sure that the method you're calling isn't site only. And it isn't just for methods, it also applies to classes. Can I get an example? Yeah, I can. There's, for example, the player class. The player class is just an abstract class, really. There are different versions for it for different sites, and the client side player is marked with site only. So as soon as you're referencing this exact class, like in here, you're going to get a problem, even though you're not even accessing it. Maybe you're doing a cast, you're doing if instance of abstract client player, then do something on it in here. So you're making sure it isn't, well, it actually is of the certain class, but still, because you're checking a class that doesn't even exist, you get a no such, no class defined error. So yeah, and that's the solution for this. Usually is working with proxies. If we go to our proxy, you'll see that we're doing a get client player here, because if you look at where this is called when we actually did that, if you remember that, we're doing that when a packet gets received. So when a packet gets received on either a server or a client, then depending on which side we are, we're going to handle it on that side. So if we are on the server, we'll handle it on the server side. No problem there. If we are on the client, we're going to invoke this one, and we're going to get the client player. So why couldn't we just do this? Minecraft get Minecraft the player. And that's basically the same reason as I explained a minute ago. You're not even accessing it, but because you're loading it, the class, you need to be very careful what you're accessing, or even not accessing. But as soon as this class gets loaded, it also wants to see what it's dealing with. So you're seeing here that it wants to deal with a. You can't really see that from the imports, but that's really what it's thinking, so to speak. So with proxies, you're abstracting that away, basically. You're just saying to the proxy, I want to get the client player. And on the server side, we're going to get a null. And on the client side, we're going to get that entity player MP, which is marked by side only. So Forge FML, I think, deals with it with proxies. When we go to our own proxy, when you annotate something with sided proxy, and you're saying where the classes are. So my client proxy is over here. That was this location, which comes down to this class, and the server proxy, which comes down to this class. And you're saying, oh, I want the proxy to be in there, and it's of some type common proxy. That one. What FML does is when you load up a dedicated server, it makes sure that an instance of this server proxy gets injected into this variable. So that way you can never access this Minecraft the player, because this client proxy class doesn't even get loaded. It isn't even there. So that's how you're dealing with side only. If you're unsure if something will work, just hide it hide it behind a proxy and it will work. So that's basically the entire episode. It's a really short one, but yeah, that's about it. If you come up with a problem you're not sure about how to solve, be sure to let me know in the comments, and I might answer you in the comments below, or I'll explain it in a dedicated video. But for now, I could only think of side only about the really common thing that does go wrong. So this is the episode. Thank you all for watching. See you all next episode, and bye bye.